So now we'll practice a full hour of vinyasa yoga. We'll get started in easy seat. You might want to have your blanket towel. If you have a yoga block or something else sturdy you use, you might want to have that nearby. Some good options, a water bottle, a book. That just helps bring the floor a little closer to you. Not completely necessary. I love blanket towel though because we're going to be started in easy seat, and sometimes bringing your hips just a little higher than your knees can make easy seat that much easier. Now, if easy seat just isn't easy on your knees, legs can come out. What really matters is that we can make a strong connection with our mat, with our prop, with our sit bones. We want that solid foundation so we can settle in, almost feel like we're growing roots. Once we're settled here, it's a little bit easier for our spine to stack up, to create a nice steady foundation. When our spines aren't aligned, we might be more inclined to relax our shoulders, our jaws, and really make this pose nice and comfortable, because easy seat is a posture. So, once you are good and settled in, you want to start to scan through your body. Notice where you're settled in, the lift up through the crown of the head. Notice where you might have subconscious holds, where you could be softer. You might be scanning visually with your mind's eye, or it might be something very sensational. It just depends on how your brain works. But once our body is in a good place, we can begin focusing on our breath. So you want to inhale very deeply. You feel your lungs expand so much that your belly expands and pushing down on the diaphragm and just filling up with air. And as we exhale, we want to explore a contraction, sort of pulling our belly button into our spine. And as you do that, as you exhale, notice how that feels in your lower back. It might feel very supportive. It should, at least. So big inhales. And then that supportive exhale. So it's up to you. But now that we've scanned through body, and now that we've focused on breath, you might decide on one of these two where your brain will go in the quiet moments. It's nice to have a focal point and to identify that focal point in the beginning so you know, should your mind wander off, where you want to come back to. Our third option could be setting an intention, something we're working toward, something we're letting go of, a simple phrase like peace or clarity. But if you're new to the practice, I might recommend with sticking with body or breath, something just a little more foundational that's going to grow your practice stronger. So a few moments to find your focus. We'll seal it up with a great big inhale, and then a little sigh out, exhale. So take a moment, ball up your right hand, and just give your wrist a couple rolls. We know wrist health is really important for sustaining our practice. And then you might take your hand out and just gently press against your right hand with your left hand, opening up your wrist. For my friends who work on keyboards, who knit, who read books, this is going to be a really lovely counter movement. And then we'll do the same on the left. So making a fist, first a couple circles in both directions. And then we might bring our left hand out long and just use our right hand, being very mindful, very gentle with our fingers and our wrists themselves, especially if they don't get a lot of love. And then we'll take our hands down. So take a couple shoulder rolls. Take a very big inhale. And as you exhale, tuck your chin against your chest. We're bringing the back of our neck into a full flex. How does that feel? This area of our neck can get a little overstretched in our day-to-day life of looking down, but we still like to try on neck flexion. We'll roll our shoulders up to our ears, and as we roll them away, we'll drop our hands towards the mat and gently draw our shoulder blades together. How does that feel in the back of the neck? Inhale your head up, rinse out your shoulders. Inhale, lift your chin up. So you want to start to see your ceiling, but you don't want to see the whole thing and dump your head back. That's going to be unsafe for the delicate little vertebra in your neck. You kind of want to be where your wall meets your ceiling, just a tad higher. Same deal. Shoulders roll up to ears, and then they drop away as far as they can, and we bring our hands towards the mat. How does that feel in the front of our neck? This is an amazing counter to the back of our neck if we do get a little overstretched in our day-to-day. Bring your head forward. Rinse out, rock out through your shoulders. So we're going to keep it nice and simple. Left hand to right knee, right hand behind. Just a twist. This is going to engage our core, and it's going to give our spine a rinse. Just like we moved our neck up and down, there's 2 ways to move your spine. Twisting is another way. So we engage our core. This protects our lower back, but also inspires our back to release, and twists are wonderfully refreshing for our back. Now that we have some space in our neck, we could look over our shoulder, just really releasing the neck. And it's an amazing pose to practice breath, because we can think about inhaling and sitting up taller. And even though we're stationary, the exhale, the contraction, might make us feel like we're deepening the twist without force. We're just gently contracting into a bigger spinal release. And let's come forward. Give our shoulders our nice little rinse out. And we'll do the same thing to the left. So right hand to left knee, left hand behind. And I should say that back arm is serving as sort of a kickstand to help you keep length in your spine, with your breath being the secondary sort of inhaling and lifting. And the exhales are allowing us to find space. Relax your right shoulder away from your ear. Let it fall, sort of drop down. Connecting breath to this very stationary pose. Inhale, lift. Exhale, rinse. Let's come forward. Check in with our shoulders. And now we're going to tip to our tabletop. And we're going to try on some cats and cows. So we know that whenever we're on our hands, we want our index fingers facing forward, sort of making the number 11. We are connected to our thumb, our index. We are not putting weight in the heels of our hands. Not dumping weight in there. We really want to be locked in, thumb, index, and then the rest of the tips of our fingers. Elbows soft. As you learn and grow, you might use your blanket towel as a bit of a wedge under the heels of your hands to learn how not to put pressure in here. Just a little tip if it feels good for you. So spread hands, soft elbows. Let's take our cats and our cows. So sort of like what we did with our neck. We're inhaling, looking up, stretching out the front of our body. Then we're exhaling, arcing our spine, pulling our belly button towards our spine. Big contraction. So as we inhale, we are gently contracting our spine. And then as we contract our core, we're opening our back. Connecting breath to movement is the key takeaway here. The inhales guide the chest up. The exhales arc. It's also a beautiful way to show that as you are contracting your core, you're opening your back. And as you're contracting your back, you're opening up your core. You just see how balanced yoga and our bodies are. And how we need to relax one muscle as we learn to strengthen another. It's a beautiful thing of this practice. It's just very balanced and holistic way to build strength. So let's come in for one more round. Inhale, lift. Exhale, nice arc. We'll bring it back to neutral. So we've played with twisting, expansion, contraction. Let's go back to flexion. So bumping our right hip all the way over to the right, and then we're trying to look over our right shoulder, back at our hip. This is flexing our spines to the side. It's a wonderful way to open up your back. Come center. We always want to pause. We never want to do anything jarring. And then left hip bumps over to the left and we peek back at it. Come center. We'll give our toes a curl under because we want to have our feet nice and wide awake for when we do our standing and our balancing poses. So again, if this is new to you, you might just be walking your hands back a little bit, especially with our feet and our arches. We don't want to feel like we're forcing opening. But as we do start to open up, it might be nice to walk all the way up, to even have a seat on the heels and to practice a little spinal lift. But the whole idea is just to stretch and bring a little blood to the feet so we have that much more stability. One of the biggest things that get in the way of our stability, especially as we age, is numbness in the feet. That's why we pay extra mind to our toes and sending a little blood there. So have a walk forward, uncurl, neutralizing the feet against the tops of the mat. It might even feel good to just sort of tap them out. And then we'll curl our toes under, lift our seat, find our downward facing dog. So remember, find that strong hand placement. Spread out the hands, thumb and index, not collapsing weight into the heels. Then you might press one heel towards the mat, bending through opposite knee, waking up our legs, getting comfortable, letting our head hang, lifting our seat up. All right. Walk your feet to your hands. We're going to come into forward fold. But before we take it, let's inhale up halfway. Look to really lengthen out our spine. One line from tailbone to top of head. We're going to see this pose a few times in our sun salutations. So really try and be with it. Wonderful for the back. Get very soft into the knees and come into forward fold. If it feels good, you can let your arms hang. Maybe you prefer to grab your elbows. You could sway gently. You could hang out in stillness. Shake out your head. Just give your neck, your whole spine a break from gravity. It's not something we do often. Drop your hands. Roll up nice and slow to stand. Our head is going to be the very last thing to come up. And when we do land, we want to come into a nice Tadasana, or mountain pose. So that means we're connected in the heels and the balls of our feet. Our feet are about hip distance apart. Our knees are soft. We've got that wonderful foundation. So let's go in for a sun salutation. Inhale brings hands up. Exhale melts us down to our toes. Here's our inhale, halfway lift. Remember, it's more than a transition, it's a pose. Hands to mat for our very first high plank. And as we're building strength, we're setting our knees down, anchoring the tops of our feet. Elbows are grazing the ribs, and we're lowering our chest slow and controlled, building up core and arm strength. Feet press in. That first cobra, no help from the hands, just your strong back. Getting your back used to the arc. Press into the mat. You can always come up through table and then into downward facing. We're going to exhale and travel to the top of our mat, maybe a walk, maybe a step. Our all important inhale, half lift. Exhale to toes. Inhale, sweep hands up. Let's add just a little back bend here. Elbows drop in line with the shoulders. This is called cactus or goalpost. Hips are anchored over heels, and we're just looking up towards our ceiling, but with a very engaged shoulder, lifting up chin. So strong. Inhale, hands up. Exhale, have a little melt back to your toes. Inhale, halfway lift. High plank. Step back. So the reason I'm having you lower to the knees, and you might want to do that now, is because when we do lower to our bellies, we don't want our hips or our chest to drop first. We want the whole body in one line. And coming down to your knees first will ensure you build up the proper foundation to do that. Now as you inhale to your cobra, tops of feet pressing in, you might press into your hands and come up just a little higher if it feels safe in your spine. Toes curl under, downward facing. I should say, if you ever want to skip a flow, you can always press right to downward facing. Big inhale. Exhale to the top. Half lift. Forward fold. We're going to inhale, sweep our hands up, and we're going to explore our sun salutation B. So feet hip distance apart, sink in like you're sitting into a chair. One of our first standing poses. So the weights and heels, though the balls of your feet are connected and your toes are anchored in. Core is engaged to support your lower back, and shoulders fall away from your ears. And it's a bit of a toughie. Big inhale. Exhale to toes. I know, so many sun salutation flows. Inhale, half lift. Find your high plank. Maybe coming down to the knees, anchoring the feet so we can practice lowering our chest all at once, finding the arm strength. Inhaling up cobra, however high we'd like to take it, whatever feels good for our back. Downward facing dog. Take your right foot, step it between your hands. You might have to help it out with your right hand. Open left foot into a 45-degree angle, warrior one position. Toes sort of angled to the top left corner. Chest comes up. So the foot is on a funky angle. You're going to feel it in your calf. It's a nice calf stretch. You want to be really locked into the pinky edge of your back foot, and you want your right knee stacked on top of your ankle. So because this is a calf stretch, and you might get some sensation in your knee, we say we like to bring our right hip back and our left forward, which means we also have a little twist in the lowest part of our spine. But as you explore that hip placement, be mindful that you're not tweaking your knee or your lower back. Honor your body. Hands come up. Shoulders are soft. This is a pose of stability. So if it feels unstable, you might have to take a slightly wider stance. You want to feel like you can settle into your legs. Big inhale. Exhale, come on down. Frame the foot, step right foot back, high plank. I know, another flow. Lower to the knees though. Find that strength, especially if you start to get tired. Focus on mechanics. Inhale up to cobra. Curl your toes, downward facing. Let's do it on the opposite side. So left foot comes between hand, right foot finds that nice 45-degree angle, and we lock into the pinky edge as we bring our chest up. Foundational feet, wider stance if we need it. Set it up from the bottom, then play with the hips, keeping in mind that you're accounting for your knee, your back. That's why I love safe form, but I'm not a stickler for proper form. Because what's proper form when all of our bodies are different? Hands up, shoulders soft. Fierce like a warrior. Virabhadrasana or warrior one. Big inhale. Exhale, come on down, frame. Step left foot back, high plank. Passing through our knees so that we're not getting tired and training our bodies in not the proper form. Inhale up to cobra. Downward facing. A little exhale here. In. We got to inhale in our downward dog and exhale to the top. Inhale, halfway lift. Now I'm going to shake it up. We're going to exhale, fold, but to get into our chair, we're going to bring our seat back and our hands up. Sometimes teachers will have you come in that way. You can try it out, but if you find that you're not finding the proper form, you can come up to standing and then just have a seat in your chair. Do it in a way that makes sense for your body, not the way it's called. So sitting down nice and deep, big inhale, exhale to toes. Inhale, half lift, high plank, full of strength, coming to our knees. So we have that nice controlled lower to the belly. Inhale, cobra. Downward facing. So let's shake things up a little bit. We're going to take our right foot, bring it between our hands. We're going to open up our left foot into warrior two position. So our pinky edge is just about parallel to the back of the mat. And we're going to reverse windmill open our arms. So what's the same as warrior one? That front knee stacked over the ankle. Good and safe. What's different? Our pinky edge is at about a 90-degree angle. Accommodating though, you can gently move the foot to find what feels better for your knee. But the back foot is fully engaged. Both legs doing 50% of the work. We are in deep. Our right knee is open just enough that we can see our right big toe, and we feel our inner hips start to open. Arms up. Flip your palms so your shoulders relax away from your ears. Flip back over. Look over your fingertips. For a moment, find drishti, that soft gaze, and a point on your wall. Take your right elbow, rest it gently on your right knee. You don't want to just dump your weight in here. Your strong core, now it's your side body, is holding you up, and you're reaching your hand overhead. You could even bring your elbow inside of your knee. Our strong extended side angle. Inhale, come up. Warrior two. Put the gaze over your fingers, lock it in. Flip your right palm. Exhale, reverse your warrior. Left hand down your left leg for stability. Knee stays stacked. Little look up. We're opening up our side body, so good for our back. And we're tapping into the muscle that moves our hip flexors. So just wonderful poses for our hips too. Big inhale. Exhale to warrior two. Cartwheel and frame. So we're going to skip the flow, and this will give you a good example. Left toes come forward, right foot steps back, and we're just in our downward facing dog. Goodness knows we deserve the break. So take left foot, bring it between hands. Right foot finds warrior two. Pinky edge just about parallel to the back of the mat. That little windmill open. Knee on top of ankle in the front. Pinky edge pressed in. Both legs doing 50% of the work. Left knee slightly open so you can see your toe and open up the hip. Now, if you're taking this stance and you find that your ankle is or your knee is tracking over your ankle, you might need to widen things up. You're stronger than you know. If you find that your knee is way behind, you might need to shorten up just a little bit, and that's okay. It takes a while to find your footing. Arms up, gaze over front left. Let's flip to relax our shoulders, and then come back. So extended side angle. We're bringing elbow to knee. We're not dropping our weight in. It's just sort of a marker. We're using our strong side bodies. Remember, our core is essential to a strong practice. There's our big, lovely reach. Let's inhale, come on up. Flip our left. Exhale, reverse. Our feet are staying steady and stable. Big inhale. Exhale, warrior two. All right, now we're gonna cartwheel our hands. Frame our foot. You could step back into your downward facing, or you could step your left foot back into a high plank. Whatever you're doing, moving slow and controlled so it's proper form, all about the strength, even if we're getting a little tired. Inhale up to downward facing dog. Some nice big pedals. Exhale to the top. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, hands all the way up overhead. Exhale through heart center. We've done it. We've gotten to the peak of our practice. So let's try on our balanced postures. Take a moment to just rock on your feet to see where the heels and balls settle in. Then that good grounding with the right foot. Heel, ball, toes acting as a secondary point, soft knee. Left knee turns open. Remember, kickstanding, just keeping your ankle against your heel against your ankle is an amazing place to build strength. I can already feel my right ankle and the stabilizer muscles in my right leg working hard. The knee's soft. It's tempting to lock it in. We think that if we're locked, we're going to be more stable. But instead, we won't so naturally go with our body's normal little movements. So softness. Engaged in your center point, pulling up from your pelvic floor. And even though we are strong in our core, we are still breathing deep. Hands at your heart. Just like we're tempted to maybe lock into our leg, we can be tempted to hold our breath. But if you are not oxygenating your body, these poses are just going to be harder. Hands up, soft shoulder. Settling into your foundation. Step 2, if you feel interested, would be bringing your left foot to your calf muscle. That's only if you feel safe. If you feel like you're making a fist with your right foot, if you feel too wobbly, kickstand. Let that strength build up organically, not through force. Big inhale. Exhale everything down. Take some steps. Be very mindful of your right ankle. Maybe a couple little rolls. So we'll set it up here on the left. It'll rock into the foot. Nice and steady. Soft knee to accommodate those natural little movements of our body. Opening right, and you see how I'm turning out my knee, I'm back into my hips, sort of like warrior two. Core is engaged, lifting up from pelvic floor, but still breathing. We can be strong, but still taking in big breaths, and in fact, you might inhale and exhale, find just a bigger flex. Hands at the heart, and then overhead. Nice soft shoulder. And then back to practicing drishti. Lock your eyes on a non-moving point. How does it feel? Having a non-moving point to stare into not only stabilizes our body, but it stabilizes our thoughts. If we keep coming back to this one point, we can't go off concerned about the future or in the past. We're just here on this point. Wonderful brain training for finding present. So a nice big inhale. Exhale everything down. Step it out. Mindful of our ankles. So after all that standing and all that balancing, our legs could use a little love. Inhale, hands overhead. Exhale, hinge on down to your toes. Knees soft, head hanging. So it can be nice to find a familiar forward fold, say grabbing elbows or letting your hands hang, because then muscle memory kicks in. Though it can also be nice to switch it up, to interlace your fingers, bring your hands overhead, involve the shoulders. Or if you have your sturdy object, to rest your hands on it and get even more released and comfortable letting your head hang. All right, so get rid of any props. We're going to inhale, half lift, and this will be the last time. We're going to find our high plank, but we're going to switch it up. We're going to lower to our knees, anchor in, lower to our chest. We're going to stack up our hands, rest our forehead right on our hands. We're going to bend into our knees and just sort of windshield wiper our feet side to side, loosening up our lower back. So let's explore a lotus pose, locust pose. We'll do just our legs first. It's a great back bend for strengthening the back. So head stays where it's at on the hands. We empty our lungs completely. And on an inhale, we lift up our legs using our strong backs. And then you're sort of kissing your heels together. So as you exhale, you might lower your legs slightly, lengthen out your spine. As you inhale, you might lift up really strong body. Exhale, length. Inhale, lift. Bend your knees. Rest your quads. And just windshield wiper in some space into your lower back. So let's try it with our upper half. Press the tops of your feet into the mat just like you would with Cobra. Arms come by your sides. It can be your forehead or your chin, whatever feels better against the mat. We exhale. As we inhale, our strong backs pick up just our chest. Our hip bones are in the mat, our navel's in the mat. And this time our shoulder blades are gently drawing together. Open chest, great big lift. Exhale, lengthen to the body. Inhale up, pressing into the tops of your feet. Let's lower, stack up our hands, bend into our knees, and rinse. Now, as you build strength, you can always toggle between these variations. And I say that even for this next pose. But if you do want to try the full locust with me, And remember, it doesn't matter how it looks, it's how it feels. Arms by your sides, chin or forehead down. Complete exhale. Inhale, we lift. We lift everything but our hip bones and maybe a little bit of our navel. Our heels and our shoulder blades are drawing together. The exhales are making our spine long. It might feel like we're releasing ever so slightly, but the inhales are giving us the strength and the oxygen to come up higher. Let's do one more. We've got this. Come on down. Stack up your hands. Bend into your knees. Windshield wiper rinse. Take your legs out. Your palms under your shoulders. We're going to press to a tabletop. And we want to stay here a minute. Our back bends require some big arcs. So you want to give our spine time to neutralize. So one line from crown to tailbone. And if we introduce a counter movement too quickly, we leave ourselves open to back spasms, and we don't want that. So start as you exhale, exploring just a little bit of a cat spine. Easing into it. Inhale as we come to neutral. Forget the cow. We've already taken our deep back bends. Exhale, roll just a little space. Inhale, neutral. All right, if your back feels good, let's start to sit back onto our heels and find a child's pose. It's a wonderful counter. Forehead comes down. Now remember, you could always take your knees mat distance apart, make a little extra space for your torso. It might feel good if you have sticky hips. If your seat doesn't want to quite touch your heels, this is why I can't say enough about a blanket towel. You can place it between your calves and your hamstrings, and you can create stability for yourself. But a moment to child's to give our spine some space to ground. All right, let's inhale up to table and ease our way onto our seat. So transitions, we want to be very mindful that, our bodies haven't been seated in a while. So we want to take time to bend our knees, to windshield wiper, to make sure our backs and our hips are adjusting to the change. So remember, sometimes after back bends, we take core work and sometimes we don't. Today we will. Feet are anchored, knees are bent, sit bones are making a nice firm connection with the mat. Catch the backs of your legs and just using your strong core, lower your chest to 45. So we're going to stay here for right now because we want to really focus on core strength, and it can be tempting in this boat pose to use your hip flexors, but we want the core. Like we said in cat and cow, when we are strengthening our back, our core is opening up. That just happened in our locust poses. So now here, we are balancing it out. We're strengthening our core. And that's why we want our focus. Now, you could play with lifting up your arms. How does that feel? You could catch the backs of your legs, float your legs. But going nice and slow, finding the foundation. Let's inhale, sit up tall, plant our hands, windshield wiper. Plant your feet. So one more time. Anchored sit bones, lifted up tall through our spine, already engaging our core, so that as we lower, it's like we're just finding a contraction within our contraction. So while I'm a real stickler for finding the pose variation that works for your body, I rarely, I'm very quick to not tell you to come into the full expression, like boat like this, because I see people take it, they round, they tell me they're using their hip flexors too much, and they are not laying a steady foundation. They're just teaching their bodies how to take the pose wrong. Where if you come in and you find, say, the first expression of the pose, say with arms up or holding the legs and bringing the legs up, you are finding a solid foundation. You're building up the strength organically instead of learning how to do the pose wrong. So finding whatever your full expression of boat is, and maybe not the full expression, coming up, planting hands, windshield wipering. Now we said that sometimes we do core and sometimes we just do floor. Today we'll do a bit of both. So take your legs out long. What doesn't change is that sit bones are good and anchored. If you feel like the floor is hyperextending your knees too much, blanket towel could come underneath. We want good lift out of the top of our head, hinge right from our waist. We've got this wonderfully long spine, so we're actually opening up our lower backs as we open up our legs, our seated forward fold. Now we really want to continue to lengthen out our spine, soften our shoulders. We've got this nice long back. We don't want to round or hunch up into it. Let's inhale up, bend our knees, plant our feet, and rinse. We'll sit up nice and tall, take our soles together, our knees apart, a butterfly. So if your hips are sticky, you could always walk your heels a little further away. Or if you have 2 blankets and towels, you can never have enough blankets and towels, you can cushion up your knees so they have a little extra support. But again, anchored sit bones, lifted up tall through the spine, and then just a nice hinge to open up your back and your inner hip at the same time. Inhale, length. Exhale, hinge. Where does your brain go in the quiet moments? Could you bring it back to breath, to body, to whatever you said your focus was going to be at the beginning? Inhale, float up. Guide your knees together like you're closing a book. Plant your feet, windshield wiper. So we're going to head to our back. And you may want some props, or you might even want to get a little closer to the wall for some of our inversions and some of the things we'll be exploring. If you have a good old yoga block, bring it with you. If you're working with just your blanket or towel, fold it up in such a way that it sort of looks like a yoga block. See how they're very similar tools? That's why I can't say enough about the variations of a blanket towel. Head to your back. We're in another big transition. Our backs have been working hard, so take a moment when you land to notice how your spine feels against your mat. This might feel like a stretch, so we want to give our times to neutralize, to settle in, nothing jarring. I like another set of windshield wipers. We'll plant our feet. Let's open our hips. So right ankle rests against left knee. We create a figure 4. If you have sciatica, If this is new to you, if this feels like a good stretch, just stay. It's a great place to be. You could always put your foot against a wall. That's why I suggested you may want to move to a wall. Or depending on your body, you might interlace your fingers behind your left hamstring and hold. With our pigeon poses, we want some stretch in our right hip. Think about sort of the outside of your seat. We want our knees safe. When our lower body's in a good place, we want to be able to relax our shoulders to the mat, to soften the muscles in our face. And we want to get comfortable. Our hips are the biggest joint in our body. We like to spend time here. And it's going to get still and quiet. And the brain might be tempted to wander off. That's why we draw it back to the body, back to the breath. Much like we train our bodies to find strength and mobility through the poses, we train our brains to get out of their usual patterns of thinking by coming back to present, by coming back to breath or body. So keep finding your focus. Keep exhaling and softening, finding the release in shoulders and ankles. Big inhale. Exhale your foot down. Uncross. Plant your feet. Little windshield wipers side to side. And then we'll do it on the left. So left ankle against the right knee, figure 4. Pull the figure 4 towards you if you want, or maybe the foot stays down. I will say, just because your body does one thing on the right side, don't feel forced to do it exactly the same way on the left. We are not symmetrical. We know everything changes from moment to moment. So honor where you're at in this moment. With time and with practice, we might naturally start to balance out. But we won't get there by force. So where do you go in the stillness? How could you come back to present? Through body, through breath. Take a big inhale. Exhale your foot down. Uncross. Windshield wiper. Plant your feet. So if you have your block or your blanket towel, you're going to pick up your hips just high enough to place it under the small of your lower back. That sort of flat area between your hip bones. And then you're going to bring your feet skyward for an inversion. Here's legs up the wall. If you don't have blanket or towel, you can simply come up to a wall, rest your ankles, or you can take it without. What matters most here is that we are simply inverting our body. We spend most of our time on our seat or on our feet. Rarely do we put our feet to the sky. So this does two things. It shifts our perspective. Again, how often do we have our feet in the air? And it also gives our heart a break. It's a lot of work to bring blood back up through the legs into the heart. We're taking some of that strain away so our heart can more efficiently oxygenate our bodies. And that's why inversions are so calming to our minds. Just remember to keep your knees soft. That's maybe the trickiest thing about a legs up the wall if you're not using a wall. So bend your knees, plant your feet, get rid of any props. We windshield wiper for good measure, rinsing away the stretch, the pose. And then we counter this with a happy baby. So we draw our knees to our chest. Invite a gentle squeeze. It can feel really nice to make circles with your knees, a bit of a self-massage. We come the opposite direction. For happy baby, we open our knees hip distance apart, grab our feet. It's a big stretch for our hips, and it really brings our spine long against the mat. So you could stretch a leg. You could hang out in stillness. You could rock. But find a way to make this pose accessible for your body. Release your feet. Give your knees a hug into your chest. If you need a windshield wiper, by all means. We're going to start to set our knees to the right. So you might windshield wiper them over to the right, or you might tuck them into your chest and send them over. It just depends on how big you want your twist. We do want our shoulders against the mat, so it can be nice to open up your arms, especially to guarantee that your left shoulder relaxes to the mat. You might face the ceiling. You might have a look to your left if it feels nice in your neck. So our great big spinal rinse. It's a wonderful place to check in, to make sure we're not holding physically, to connect with our body and our breath. Very often yoga poses end with some supine twists because they just rinse out anything that's lingering. Head center, leg center, give yourself a little hug and squeeze. Ease your knees to the right. Relaxing both shoulders, especially the right, to the mat, which means you might open your arms. You could face the ceiling. You could look to the right, dependent on your neck. But what can you let go of here on this twist? Maybe a thought that keeps coming up, a subconscious physical hold. Could you rinse away and just feel completely settled? And take your head to center, your legs. We want a moment here, whether we're rocking out, circling out our knees, or planting and windshield wipering, to really get any final holds out of our body. Because we're going to prepare for Savasana, so you might give yourself one more hug. And then we release onto the mat. So traditionally, Savasana is taken with you lying long on the mat, heels down, hands at the sides. But Savasana is all about letting go of the body. So if you don't feel primed to release here, if you'd feel better with a bent knee and more spine against the mat, you listen to your body, something that's going to foster deep release. because we do want to try and achieve a little bit of stillness. And our whole physical practice was to get our bodies into a place where we could take this pose more comfortably. So settle in, scan your body from tip of toe to top of head and back down, looking for anything lingering to release. Notice where your feet, your seat, your shoulders, your head connect with the mat. Feel secure in these places. Settle into them. Feel like your body could soften into and around these places. This amazing physical release. It almost feels like you're starting to let go of your body. You might for a moment feel like you become just the rise and fall of your breath. Or maybe the breath flows in and out, further softening you. So once we feel like we've left our bodies behind, we found a nice even pace and even rhythm to our inhales and exhales, we can begin narrowing our thoughts to one focus, maybe moving beyond body or breath. Trying to come back to this place just like we do in Drishti. Teaching our brains to come out of their regular pattern of thinking, the usual ways that they function in for survival, and come back to the stillness of the moment. Over time and through practice, you might even start to work away from this point of focus to get to a space where you're coming to just pure awareness. Where you feel simply suspended in the moment. So take a big inhale. Let it connect your body and your breath. Exhale, settle into yourself. Inhale down to your fingers and toes and get a little movement going. Roll out your wrists and your ankles. Take your right ear to the mat. Bring your head through center, left ear to the mat. It might be nice to reach your hands overhead to stretch your feet, your hands to lengthen your body. And then we'll roll off to one side. We pause here. And we say Savasana or corpse pose is the death of our practice. Maybe an old thought pattern. But here we're reborn, a little stronger, a little calmer, a little more in tune. So press up from your rebirth. Back into your seat. And there you have it. Congratulations. 1 full hour of vinyasa practice. And I will say thank you so much for sharing that hour with me.